Okay, here's the deal, everybody. We've uncovered a new angle to the Valve gambling story, because whenever this blew up in their face in 2016, the Steam subscriber agreement protected Valve. But last year, a legal battle changed that agreement. And in a way, this could be the exhaust port in their Death Star. A bit of a critical weakness, but one that would not matter if nobody knew and nobody cared. Which has just changed. Investigative journalist Coffeezilla's 3 videos have nearly got 15 million views, and that's not even counting the broader reactions and news stories that have then followed. And he details a crazy story. A Counter-Strike casino attempted to hire him to do an investigation on their competition, which was likely a deeply foolish move, because in trying to take down their competitor, they set an influential journalist against their entire sector, now creating a media storm that has spread far beyond that initial gaming audience. And then there's what my team found researching this story, and because of that, Valve better get ready. They have fights on their hands. They better use today's sponsor, who are an absolute favorite of mine. They're a true supporter of the channel. They are boot.dev, and here's the deal with them. They will teach you back-end web development using Python and Go, but importantly, they're just a cut above the rest because they're designed for people like you and me, because their founders are actually viewers of the channel and big gamers themselves. So boot.dev is also a community RPG. I mean, just look at this real-time leaderboard. It's so neat. They've got quests, community boss battles, XP, all supporting an extremely thorough, detailed, career-focused learning pathway, of course made by people in that career, that'll take you from the basics of Python right through to learning back-end development, with fun side quests as well, like remaking asteroids in Pygame, and vital career-adjacent skills, things like mastering Git. Now, back-end development is a high-paid career path. You're averaging 100 grand, often with great contracts, flexible working, and these are real transferable skills across the industry. And Boot just do it better than everyone else, so you can check them out today at boot.dev/Bellular News. There, you'll get 25% off your first purchase. I'd go annual for the biggest saving. And if they're not for you, well, they've got a no questions asked 30-day refund. And also, you can browse their materials and their demos for free. Valve is currently estimated to earn $1 billion a year from Counter-Strike cases, which is a billion reasons for them to keep using the case system and to not sabotage any dynamics that will drive more sales of cases and keys. Now, the way this works is the cases and the keys are all legit things within Steam, within Counter-Strike, but a grey market gambling ecosystem functions atop of that, and it's enabled using Valve's API. And because that stuff drives more sales and more volume, Valve absolutely gains. And that is a problem because especially now, scrutiny is the last thing that Valve needs. They're actually in battle on a few fronts, and that's when they're trying to do a lot of really exciting things. There's Steam Deck, Steam OS, massive platform growth, actually having promising games in development again. They are poised to be even stronger, and that just means that the stakes are all the more high. And most of all for Valve, the danger is a domino effect, that they start to get bad story after bad story, bad decision after bad decision, because one decision that has not played out in their favor will impact this story, because it's one thing that they were able to use the last time that gambling blew up. But hang on a second, what's going on? What are these battles? Let me explain. In the United States, private lawsuits from developers allege that Valve maintains an illegal monopoly by enforcing price parity even off Steam and not involving Steam keys. Now, those lawsuits recently changed, and they changed in a big way because now they have class action status. That means that any impacted developer could join, and that covers just about every developer in North America, which is, quite a few, especially by revenue. And the reason why is actually kind of wild. You see, the Steam subscriber agreement, which is the thing that everybody agrees to when you actually sign up for a Steam account, that used to contain something called a forced arbitration clause. By agreeing to it, which you had to use Steam, you waived your right to join a class action and you agreed to do arbitration. Now, with arbitration, a case is handled by an arbitrator who is usually something like a retired judge. And if you're a company, arbitration is awesome. And because of this, you, yourself, and I are likely signed up to dozens of agreements that do involve some form of forced arbitration. Here's the TLDR in that. Public courts take time, which does kind of suck. They also can set public legal precedent, which can also suck for the company, and they involve a lovely little thing called discovery. That's the phase where you're legally required to hand over documents to the court. which of course if you're a company may not be a good thing because of the contents of said documents. Arbitration then is private, it's far faster, it's usually paid for by the company. In Valve's case, it is paid for by them. And there is a power imbalance, generally speaking, with arbitration. They are almost always in favor of the companies, which, funnily enough, is why companies almost always use them. I'll leave a consumer-centric explainer to fully help you get up to speed in the source links of this video, but that's what you need to know for right now anyway. But the thing with that arbitration clause is, well, creative use of game mechanics. Lawyers realized they could exploit this, and to put a long story short, they could file arbitrations en masse, and by en masse I mean tens of thousands of arbitration cases. And because the subscriber agreement said that Steam would actually pay for the legal costs, well, for Valve that basically would have sucked, and for the lawyers, they basically had their risk dealt with because Valve's document that people signed up to said that Valve would cover the costs. Yeah, creative use of game mechanics. So, what happened then? Valve realized the impact of this and they changed the Steam subscriber agreement. And the change is actually a good one. It made your rights far more clear. That change dropped the forced arbitration clause and it helped people understand the fact that they own licenses to games on Steam, not actual games. Dropping this in the subscriber agreement does make a class action lawsuit possible, which is probably a good thing, but there is a funny side to all of this, and that is that it may not have mattered because, well, another thing happened. The court found that Valve's forced arbitration clause was actually legally unenforceable anyway, which is kind of funny. The TLDR, though, is that Valve's lawyers are very, very busy, and that's just in the US. This is not the end to their troubles. The UK's Competition Appeal Tribunal is hearing a similar case, and the European Union slapped them with a €7.8 million fine, how will they ever survive, as a part of an antitrust breaching cartel that used Steam's geo-blocking features to prevent games being bought in Eastern European countries from outside of those countries. Okay, all of that legal stuff basically woke Valve up. They realized, oh dear, shit's going on, we are really being scrutinized here. And that's why in Q3 of 2024, many of us received this innocuous little pop-up when we logged into Steam. And given people's reactions to being informed they own a license and not the game, it's fair to say many people didn't actually realize that they don't own their games in Steam. But the point is, a lot of noise, a lot of change, and into this environment, Coffeezilla dropped his 3 nukes. To make sense of any of this, we gotta know how CS cosmetics actually work. So cases are earned by having a paid CS2 account and getting weekly drops. They're randomly from playing on official servers or by purchasing them from another player using Steam's market, where people, of course, are using Steam wallet currency. Now, Valve takes a cut of every transaction there. There's a 5% Steam market fee, and then because they're the publisher of Counter-Strike, 10%. But that is obviously all Steam wallet currency, so Valve earns the real currency whenever players actually buy into the ecosystem, and then with every subsequent transaction, that is them removing Steam wallet currency from the market. So yeah, it's a lovely little system. They preside over that economy and they make a shitload. Now, cases don't work like in so many other games, like say the Overwatch loot boxes back in the day. That's because to open a case, you need a key. Now, keys cost $2.50. And I want you to think about this a bit like rare Pokemon or Magic cards. You could buy the card directly from a store, a collector, another player for a high price. Or you could just buy loads of booster packs for a lower price, hoping that RNG is in your favor. It all kind of depends on your risk tolerance and how much you just want in the card. So items contained in cases can be sold on the market, but you can also just buy a key to open a case. So in theory, right? Beyond using the money to buy more keys for more cases, you can actually trade this like a little bit of a stock market to get loads of Steam currency. But here's actually something that's a side point of today's video, but is kind of interesting. You couldn't just sell your game to somebody else in Steam. But do you know what you can do? You can buy a Steam Deck. You can buy an index. And you can sell those on eBay. And that does mean that if you can trade your cases and your skins and beat Valve's transaction fees, you can earn a fixed Steam wallet, which you can then use to buy Valve hardware, which you can then sell for real money. So that's an angle, but it's not the core of today's video. The core of this video is the gambling empire that rests atop it. So just the cases earned Valve $1 billion in 2023. That is before every other way that they earn money from all of this even, comes into account. And in theory, this is safe. This is Valve's economy using Valve's monopoly money, and you cannot trade out. Asterisk, buy a Steam Deck, sell it on eBay. In theory. Because the thing is, in reality, you can cash out to crypto if you really want to. Enter the skin gambling sites. These sit atop Valve's market, and they are entirely reliant on Valve's systems to function. Here's basically how. Users connect their Steam account to one of these gambling sites. Then they can use their skins to gamble on games of chance. And of course, much like a rare Magic or Pokemon card, those skins have got a dollar value, and it's a real dollar value. It really is. Like, when Overwatch 2 sells you a skin, Blizzard sets the price, and it's really, do you believe them that that's the fair price for that item? But a Counter-Strike knife will go for hundreds of dollars, or thousands of dollars, sometimes north of $10,000. And that is based on a real market that is dictating its price based on supply. Of course, Valve controls supply, and of course on the perceived value, which is controlled by the users. But people do buy these skins for a lot of money. And because they do, and because it's price discovery via a market, the prices of those items don't only feel genuine, they are genuine, at least to those who are in that scene. And in fact, because of that, there's a whole third-party marketplace infrastructure that exists, but that is not the point of today's video. The point of today's video, of course, is the gambling sites. So what you'll do is you'll put your skin up for a bet. It could be a dice game, a roulette wheel, or some sort of more bespoke type of game. And if you win, well, you could get your skin back plus some profit. If you lose your skin. But what do I mean when I say you get your skin back plus profit? How do you get half a skin? Well, this could be you winning skins that have got a cash value, or you winning site currency. And some of those sites will let users cash out of their site currency into like actual currency, or perhaps into crypto. And it's in orchestrating all of that these sites make their money. They are casinos, they have a house advantage. And here, it's actually just as deceptive, if not more deceptive, than a real casino. Now, of course, gambling is a generally awful thing with a lot of societal costs, but here's the deal. It does tend to be regulated. If you're 14 years old, you're really going to have a hard time walking into a casino in Las Vegas. It is very different here, and that makes this entire situation quite a bit worse indeed. You see, officially Steam is accessible to users over the age of 13. Often the gambling sites don't properly check user age though, and that means that these sites are flooded with children, they are flooded with teenagers, and that is no doubt made worse by, of course, a lot of the influencers who have been driving people to these sites through sponsored deals. Now, we treat this age group differently in the law because, amongst many reasons, their brains are not fully developed. They will not understand a very foundational everyday law of maths called the law of large numbers. A 97% rate of return means that if you put $100 in, on average, you'll get $3 back. Now, per the law of large numbers, that does mean the house will always win. Yes, you may win in the short term, but you cannot escape the law of large numbers. The house advantage will always come out on top. But it's actually even worse than that, because a 97% rate of return is probably not what you're going to experience, because that's average rate of return. It's not median for your play session. And that's where jackpot wins come in. Not only do they invoke the random variable reward schema that, of course, is made famous by the Skinner box, but they also mean that the average rate of return is not the typical rate of return, because the jackpot drags it up. And that means if you're a full-grown adult, you know that if you put $100 into a machine, you're not going to just get 97 out. But if you're a teen, if you're a kid, and you've got hooked, maybe because of a lucky drop or a promotion or some sort of influencer deal that gave you some starting credit, well, you don't really stand a chance. And this has done a lot of damage. And the thing is that Valve could stop this in an instant. They choose not to. The gambling sites are huge, and they do drive the sale of keys used to open those cases, because ultimately that is where the items that are used in the gambling come from. And it's also the case that Steam's very own market is what reinforces the perceived value of these digital items. And to borrow a phrase from something that I love, all of this has happened before, all of this will happen again. This first blew up in Valve's face back in 2016. And not only in 2016 were they given a chance to stop this, they were given ample reason. So here's T. Martin, here's Syndicate. Both men are large influencers in the space, and current main character of the internet, H3H3 Productions, made a video about them. And that's because both of them were promoting a CSGO gambling site. But it wasn't just the normal sort of sponsor deal. It actually turned out they owned the site, and they didn't tell people that. So it was an undisclosed promotion of their own business. It was very sketchy, but even worse, things seemed to be rigged. YouTubers doing promotions would experience better odds. This created viral moments that misrepresented the experience of an average user of one of those sites. And if we were talking just you get a fancy skin, that would be bad. But obviously the problem here is that people can cash out. Again, repeat problem gamblers know how gambling works, right? They actually do know how gambling works. And that means they do know that they're one jackpot away from solving their problem. And again, a lot of this was done on YouTube, with younger audiences who were impacted. When money is deleted with no chance of getting it back, lives can be ruined. And on this, Valve acted-ish. It kinda did. 23 gambling sites received cease and desist suits, and Valve published a statement decrying such use of their API. Now obviously, make no mistake here, Valve always knew this was going on. It was literally sitting atop of their own economy. In fact, the CSGO community, be that teams, be that individual influencers, they were bankrolled by these sites through sponsorship deals. So, all of that happened. Valve only acted when it became a problem, a PR problem, but they didn't really act because new sites emerged, and to this day, users can still link their Steam account, gamble their skins, and cash out into currency or crypto. But that's not the full story. Families sued Valve, and the reason Valve was able to go through those suits unscathed no longer exists. That is why I brought up the previous legal troubles before we dove into the gambling. Here is the defense that Valve have lost. When the original story blew up, the families who were suing, of course, follow the Steam subscriber agreement. They were required to undergo arbitration because that is what the agreement said. And rather unsurprisingly, the arbitrators broadly found in favor of Valve, as is kind of the norm in corporate arbitration. And there's also an element here of divide and conquer, everyone a separate arbitration case. This went on, it fizzled out, and the final case from parents was dismissed in 2022. People Make Games then published their report into the ongoing gambling problem. They got 400k views, which is great, and their piece of work is fantastic, but it's not 15 million views. That's what Coffeezilla brings to the picture. And by the time Coffeezilla began his research, these gambling sites were getting a little bit more daring. They were sponsoring esports teams like G2. Yeah, it was a grey market or a black market, but it was a very public, very visible one. This got so bad that Twitch made moves to ban skin gambling promotion, and in 2023, Valve acted. Again, they acted technically. The Steam Subscriber Agreement Code of Conduct specifically prohibited gambling, buying or selling Steam accounts, and selling content. There you go. With that done, Valve could punish their users who engaged in gambling. The gambling was gone and everything was fine. Just that didn't happen because they're not enforcing that en masse, or certainly not to the point where the gambling scene is being meaningfully damaged. That all went down in 2023, but since then times have obviously changed. Because arbitration, which served them well in 2016, is gone from the Steam subscriber agreement. It was also found to be unenforceable. And on top of that, Valve are already facing class action lawsuits. Could they have another one here? Because a class action lawsuit tackling the gambling, that could actually be massive. Not only because it's a big story, because it's unregulated gambling, because a lot of harm was done to people on Valve's platform, but because it's a hell of a human interest story, and that is just the type of story that people can make a lot of hay from. If you want to get somebody in some government agency really, ready to carry on the fight, a story like this is gold. So what are Valve to do, and would the government actually intervene here? Honestly, big picture, I do kind of doubt it. The overall vibes towards gambling are fairly positive. A 2018 Supreme Court decision legalized online sports betting in the US, so congratulations, America. That's long been a blight in the UK, and now you guys get to have it too. But I don't really see anything big or hawkish coming from the government there. Coffeezilla argues that Valve could solve most of this by doing a know your customer check. Like, if somebody's ID shows that they are of an age to actually know what they're doing in a legal sense, then Valve would absolutely be way safer here. But, you know, it's a legal thing, but it's also a moral thing. They would still be profiting from gambling. Do we like that? It's something that much of the Counter-Strike 2 community absolutely hates. But for Valve, the skin market is big business. They know that gambling drives volume. They could have solved this problem for good a long time ago, yet they didn't. Of course, if Valve was to go and change the loot box element, they would have a vastly lower value market. If they implemented price controls to stop crazy things happening, well, that would damage their market. It would break the value-finding function that drives the perceived value of Counter-Strike skins, which would then devalue them in the eyes of players, so they're not going to do that. This is a question of how Valve wants to earn their money, and as a private company, they are free to do that however they want. There is no stock price-obsessed board of people who don't know what a video game is to blame. It's only Valve, it's only their leadership, and that means it's Gabe Newell. This is a question for him, because the buck stops with him. It's unlikely the US regulators will change anything here, I would say, given the 2018 sports betting decision. But the defense that saved Valve from the worst of 2016 is now gone. A hushed arbitration that is able to do divide and conquer on all of the aggrieved people, that is very different to a large, very public court case that involves discovery. Discovery is important. If there is an email between Gabe and somebody else at Valve that references they know about the gambling or some internal estimate of how much money they're making or anything, well, they'd be legally required to hand that over. And that could be a bad look. On the topic of looks and PR, oh boy, CD Projekt Red, Rebel Wolves. There's a lot to talk about, and it's in this video.